Hey everybody, I'm Josh.
And I'm Grant. Bear with us, my voice is pretty raspy right now from this weekend, but no big deal.
Anyway, this is Peel Drag Podcast number 4. And basically what we're going to do is recap the past 7 days. We fished 2 tournaments in 7 days. We had the Shad Shootout here in Richmond, and we had the Yak Tack tournament in Farmville. And we're basically going to go over what game plans we used, what baits we used, and just a sort of whole aspect of the tournaments, and basically everything that led to our success, and how we can help you be more successful and get involved in these tournaments. That's the big thing. So basically, the Shad Shootout was for multiple sclerosis and raising money for research and awareness and all that good stuff. The tournament raised, I think around, $2,000, couple $1,000, which is pretty good for a tournament with less than 100 people.
Still had a better turnout than they had last year. I think last year was only like 50 or something like that.
Yeah,
but they had 79 or 80 people in it this year.
Yeah, it's still growing. It's going to be a big tournament. It's got a lot of potential. It's going up. It's a lot of fun. It's pretty laid back. Tom Mattall runs a pretty fun little tournament out of Richmond here. It's kind of different. You're fishing for shad and catfish as opposed to bass and all these saltwater, tournaments and stuff like that. So it's a lot of fun. But basically, I did horrible in it, and Grant ended up winning.
I won the main tournament, which was the length of your 2 longest shad and your longest blue cat, and I won the fly fishing division, which was the length of the longest fish you caught on a fly. Didn't matter what species.
Yeah, so basically we're going to go over how I screwed up majorly and
I didn't.
Yeah, which seems to be
the norm.
Seems to be the trend here lately. But anyway, basically we went to the captain's meeting Friday night. It was nice, laid back and relaxed. There's probably, 30 people there. Had a nice little get together, went over the rules and all that stuff. And it was good that you get there the night before, because he also had a captain's meeting the day of, and I believe Tom said he was going to be getting rid of that.
It didn't start till 7, and you could start fishing at 8, but he said the captain's meeting didn't start till about 7:15. It ended up running almost to 8 o'clock,
right.
Which we didn't want to do that because we wanted to be in the water, anchored, ready to go by 8, just looking at the wide, start casting at 8 o'clock.
Right. It was a lot of fun. We got out to our spot an hour before lines in, and it was nice, chill morning. Didn't have a whole lot of pressure on us. We kind of took it laid back. We knew we were going to catch fish. Well, I thought I was going to catch fish, but it ended up...
The word "new" is used.
But see, the background on the tournament, we had high water a couple days beforehand, which kind of screwed up the shad fishing. We went to a spot where we knew the Americans would be stacked up, and it's a length tournament. Obviously, Americans are longer than hickories, so we were trying to get on the
usually by a good 4 inches every time. But
right, so we were trying to get on the Americans. We casted for probably an hour without picking up any fish. And
that's when the color changing started. We were changing colors the whole time. We made sure that not at any given time were we throwing the same color. We were both throwing double rigs. We had 4 colors in the water, and he caught one in caught one in 4 casts. That was immediate, little hickory, and then we were dry for about 45 minutes to an hour. But we had, the main thing is teamwork. We had 4 different colors on, and we were just plunging different depths, different retrieves, different colors.
Basically,
everything.
Just putting our heads together, trying to figure out what worked. And if you have somebody to fish with, that does a whole lot of good. You got twice the brain power, twice the manpower, figuring out what's working. But in true Josh Dolan fashion, there was a striper Calcutta or striper pot, and of course, Tom tried to talk me into signing up for it, and I didn't.
He didn't enter the striper pot because I'm not going to catch a striper.
Yeah.
I'm not fishing for him.
Never catch a striper. Caught a striper, second fish of the day. lost out on $115, but it's whatever. Totally not butthurt about it. You know, it is what it is.
Because he totally is.
Yeah, but
He still can't sleep at night. But
anyway.
whatever.
But we ended up fishing for shad till probably about 11 or 12. We found a good break line in the current. And a lot of shad fishing comes down to reading your water and understanding where that current is affecting the fish below the surface. So we got on a good current break, and I think we plucked out some fish. Grant ended up with, 34 inches of
I
shad?
had a 19-inch American and like a 15.5-inch hickory, so like 34.5, 34, something like that, inches of shad. I mean, that part of the tournament, by all means, work together on it. The shad aren't going to be what wins you the tournament by any means.
Right.
When you go catfishing, yeah, you're competing. But we were just trying to secure 2 big shad.
Yeah, 2 big Americans, which it didn't work out. There was only 1 American caught, and he caught it. So I was down by 5 inches already. So he left the rock and floated down probably 45 minutes ahead of me.
This was after 20 minutes of bending my Mirage drive, because while my kayak was sitting up against that rock, all the boats decided to go by about 30 miles an hour. My kayak was banging up against the rock, and my Mirage drive, one of my fins was like an S. It was all wrapped around the other. I was yanking on it for a good 20 minutes to get it to even work. I mean, it was still looking pretty ugly by the time I got back to the ramp.
Yeah, so after bitching for a little while about it, me getting a good laugh, he goes down and, of course, nails the only fish he needed to catch all day.
No, I got to where we had caught a few decent blue cats before. It wasn't where Josh caught his big one last year, but we've caught a couple decent fish, so I was trying to secure at least one so I wouldn't come in empty-handed. Drop the rod on the left side of the kayak down, hit the bottom, 1, 2, 3. I leaned over. I didn't even get my hand on the reel to drop the other rod. This rod's doubled into the water, and it wasn't a slam. I mean, it just got slammed, and I thought it was going to be a little blue cat, and I laid into it on that. It was actually on one of our lighter rods. It was on a musky rod, and I laid into it on that musky rod, and it didn't move, which that rod's a lot lighter, but it was probably a 10-minute fight just because I forgot to swap my reels out before the tournament, so it was on a C3 Abu Garcia, and, I mean, he took me to the bottom 3 or 4 times. I got him up and got him in my hands, and then he was 36 inches, but he was too long to actually put in the kayak to take a picture of, so I had to climb up on one of the docks at Rockets, lay out my measuring board, lay him out on the measuring board. And dude actually from Rockets Landing came down there, and he was going to tell me to leave because I didn't pay. But he ended up holding the fish down so I could get a picture of it, because it would not sit still for 2 seconds.
Right. So basically, by the time I caught up with Grant, about an hour later, paddles up. You want my bait? Why do I want your bait? Oh, I just caught a 36-incher, 35-incher. So basically, I would have had to catch like a 40 to 42-inch fish.
Which is about a 60-pounder.
Yeah,
Josh would have had to catch the fish he caught last year.
Yeah, so I pretty much, I went ahead and jigged for some white perch, caught some white perch, kept them alive in my live well, went ahead and threw the Hail Mary for some flathead because the flathead are longer. It was the only real thing I had a shot at to beat him. Ended up not even catching a catfish all day, which I haven't went to the James yet until that day and gotten skunked. So, basically...
In true Josh Dolan fashion.
Yeah, dropping the ball big time. But, you know, it is what it is. It was still a lot of fun. It was good to watch him win. I was still pretty butthurt about it, but, you know, it is what it is. Oh, and then your fly.
Oh, yeah. The fly division, after I gave Josh a couple pieces of bait, he just wanted the huge pieces. I got rid of the rest of my bait, and I went back to the same spot, more or less, where I caught him. I drifted for about an hour and a half. I knew the water was too muddy to even go and try and risk trying to catch a striper. Josh caught one that morning, but it wasn't worth trying to throw a striper fly all day and cast yourself to death to try and catch one. So I got the bright idea. I brought a bunch of these big fur leeches. I mean, they're about that long, tied on a 6/0 octopus hook. Not a circle, just a straight octopus hook. And more or less, I just drifted them. I had my sink tip on. I rolled the fly out there, got it down, and I mean, as soon as I could feel it on the bottom, I stripped up about 6 inches of line and just kind of popped it every now and then, strip it. I mean, it would drift for about 2 or 3 minutes, I'd strip it in and cast it again. And I got a few bites, but when the fly's directly below you, you can't strip strike them. So I kept missing fish, and finally something held on to it for 2 seconds. I laid into him with a 10 weight. Turns out it was a 21-inch blue cat. Absolutely retarded. I've had blue cats hit leeches like that before, but it's not a way to go catch catfish. Don't go out there and try to drift. It will probably work, but it's not fun to sit there for 2 hours. But I just got it in there. I didn't think I was going to win. I figured somebody would have caught a decent American or might have got lucky and caught one striper. But
both the catfish that were caught are small in comparison to what is in the James that time of year. But, in a tournament like that where you have limited amount of time and you're fishing for 2 completely different fish and 2 completely different styles, kind of figured once he got up to about 70 inches, he had it. So
I figured it wasn't worth spending more of the day trying to catch a 37 or a 38-inch blue to try and gain anything.
Right.
So I just said I'm at least going to try and do something in both divisions.
So the fishing-wise wasn't any fun for me because I was playing from behind the whole time. But that's besides the point. Tournament was great. Raised a good chunk of money for multiple sclerosis awareness and research. It's good stuff. Always a good time. Like I said, Tom runs a pretty fun show over there, so it was good stuff. But that was our first Saturday of our tournament run. Very next Saturday, we only fish 3 tournaments a year. 2 of them just happen to be within the same week.
Probably fish a few more this year. Some of the smaller ones and stuff if we get the time. But these are the 3
bigger ones
that we do. At least the largest group of people.
Right. So anyway, we hightailed it down to Farmville. I got a chance to pre-fish on Friday, and I got out there, got up at about 4, drove down to Farmville, and was doing a little fishing. And launched my boat. Everything was fine, and I was casting. About 10th cast, I got whacked, and I set the hook, and everything was fine. I was fighting, and all of a sudden, this freaking bass comes out of the water. It was massive. I about lost it, but anyway, fought it. Comes up. I land her and measure out and everything. 23 inches. My first,
toad. I saw the pictures. I wasn't there.
I'll probably include a picture somewhere in this area right about now. But anyway, I didn't have a citation bass. I missed by 1/4 inch 3 times last year, so I was really relieved to get that out of the way, and I don't have to really chase that now this year. But she went 23 inches. Of course, I didn't have my scale. Don't know why. The one
left
time
it in the truck.
Yeah,
Josh Dolan we're talking about.
The one time I forgot it, but I would say she probably went around about 9 pounds. She was a good fish, but anyway,
it was a fat 23-inch fish that hadn't spawned yet, so
right.
she was heavy.
But anyway, that was it for my pre-fishing. I caught my crappie and I caught my bluegill, but I didn't catch any more bass at this particular lake. So we came back and we had the captain's meeting and everything Friday night. And Luther Cyphers with Yak Attack obviously runs the Yak Attack tournament. Did a great job. Everything was great. I paid $75 because I waited till the very last day to sign up, and I paid $75 to get in the tournament. And I guarantee you, I probably ate $75 worth of ribeye steak Friday night.
For what we pay for ribeye steak, he ate $75 worth of ribeye.
It was good stuff, man. They take care of you.
And that seafood stew, oh my God.
It's amazing we even were able to fish.
We'll probably include pictures of the grub right in here too.
Yeah, it was brutal. But anyway, we went over the rules and all that stuff at the tournament meeting and everything. We took a walk. It was at Twin Lakes State Park, which is a great place. We hope they have it there more often. It was an awesome location.
It was a good venue for a tournament. I mean, it supports a lot more people than where we were last year at that guy's field, which it was nice, but this, with the amount of people you had, it looked like a lot more legit of a tournament. It really was a lot better atmosphere. With
this tournament growing, too, they really needed to have it at a place like that, and they did a good job setting it up. But we ended up, it's Twin Lakes State Park, and the conference center is right on the lake. So we were kind of just walking down, discussing what we thought we were going to do.
Holding hands, stuff like that.
Yeah, Freaking weird. Anyway, walking down to the lake, totally romantic and everything. No. We got down there, we were talking about what we were doing. Just happened to look over, and there's this huge spawning bed. Probably, biggest one I've seen. It was the only one I've seen all weekend.
The whole lake is stagnant. There's no flow from a
creek or
outflow pipe or anything. It's
right.
just stagnant. So the hydrilla, even in the winter when it dies, it's still there, and then it already started coming up. So when you've got hydrilla beds like that, they just look like they stick out like a sore thumb because it's this giant hole of sand in this sea of black hydrilla grass. And much less a fish sitting on top of it, it's insane. You just see them like they're just right there.
Right. So, I talked to Grant about, these two bass. There's one that's probably 17. There's probably one somewhere between 20 and 22. Big female. And they weren't locked down on the bed yet, so we knew they'd be hard to catch. They're kind of circling and patrolling and everything still. They hadn't really solidified their spot.
The female didn't act like she had laid yet.
Yeah.
She acted like she was defending it. Like that's where she knew she was going to lay her eggs, but she wasn't sitting there. Like you couldn't yank her off of it. She'd chase stuff off and stuff, but she hadn't laid it down yet.
So we started to put together a plan, and his plan seemed to be more solid. Mine was a little bit more loose of a plan. I had already
Josh Dolan loose with his planning.
Yeah.
No.
I pretty much figured I was going to lose. I haven't done well in tournaments, especially after the Shad shootout. I was like, who cares? I'm just going to get out here and have fun. So that's pretty much it for Friday night, I think. So anyway, what happened is I got up early Saturday morning, and I drove up to Powhatan to fish Powhatan Wildlife. And I got up there, and me and Grant talked. He said the crappie is going to be what sets this tournament apart from everybody else. Everybody's going to catch bass. Well, at least we thought everybody was going to catch bass. Everybody's going to catch bluegill.
Every year, the crappie seems to be the fish that everybody says they couldn't find. They're not that easy of a fish to find when you think about it, because you got to find structure in lakes that a lot of these people don't fish all the time. So, anybody can find a bluegill. Put a piece of gulp underneath the bobber, and there you caught one. But the crappie are always, you somewhat have to know where to look for them. They're not always going to be on timber and stuff like that. You just have to find them.
Right.
So.
And sometimes you get lucky and catch them with your bluegill, which I'm sure people have done in these tournaments. But we talked, and we decided the crappie was going to be what we needed to get. So I get up there and I'm fishing, and for some reason my lake was a lot more chocolatey watercolor than the rest of them. Sandy and some other
Sandy
ones.
cleared up a lot overnight. Friday it was pretty gross. Not gross, but it was 18 inches of visibility at the most. And then Saturday it was like 2 to 3 foot of visibility. It just cleared up overnight.
Right.
So I don't know what caused that.
So I'm up fishing Powhatan Wildlife, and it's about 42 miles, so it was a hike for me to get up there. Wasted a lot of time driving around. Got up there, couldn't get a hold of any bass. It was getting kind of deeper into the day. And I knew I didn't want to force the issue. I didn't want to stay there all day and waste my chances at getting fish somewhere else. So I started fishing, for my panfish, just so I could say I have something. I didn't want to get behind on myself. So I got a panfish, I got a sunfish, and then I ended up getting a crappie. Here's where I screwed up. I caught one crappie. I said, all right, I got to get out of here. I have what I need for the slam. So I threw the crappie back.
You had like a 24-inch slam at that point, didn't you?
Yeah, I had the smallest slam ever.
Slam.
It was. I had a 10-inch bass and like an 8-inch crappie and an 8-inch brim. So
his trophies are bigger than anything he caught in his slam.
Yeah, that is no exaggeration.
Quite literally.
Yeah. So I had like a 26-inch slam, and I go back and I'm getting on the boat ramp and I'm doing all my stuff and I'm loading my truck and I'm backing down the ramp. And in true Josh Dolan fashion, I screw up again. I back my truck down too far to the right, and I get in some mud, and I sink my truck up to the frame. I don't know how I got out, but I managed to rock my little Ford Ranger back and forth and popped it out, loaded everything up real quick, and hit the road heading to Sandy. So at this point, I have a 26-inch slam. I'm going to Sandy because I think I'm going to add to my brim total, so maybe I have a shot at winning the brim division. Just because I know a good couple good spots there have some big lunker, almost citation-sized sunfish. So I pull up to Sandy, and lo and behold, it's blowing 20 all of a sudden.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. When we get to what I was doing, I was burying the nose of the pro angler in the waves in Sandy. I mean, I had to paddle across 700 acres of water, and I was burying the front hatch of the freaking pro angler in white caps. It was nuts.
So it was pretty brutal.
Steady 20 out the northeast. It was stupid.
Yeah, and like I said, I didn't want to force the issue anywhere. I wanted to stay mobile and be able to kind of fish at certain places. I had a game plan set up. I was going to hit this lake, and if this doesn't produce, I was going to hit another one, so on and so forth. So I got to Sandy, and I was jigging the Silver Buddy for some brim, and I couldn't pull anything up. They'd all pulled into deeper water, and it was just impossible. So I loaded up again after talking with him for about 5 minutes, and I said, he told me, what'd you have, like what was your slam?
I didn't have a slam at that point. I had a 19-inch bass and like a 7-inch brim. I needed to find a crappie, but I was trying to catch one more brim just to fall back on if I wanted to win a division.
Right. So I loaded up, and I headed to Twin Lakes to these 2 bass we seen. So,
this is where the fun began.
Oh, yeah.
Josh Dillon.
And at this point, I had done a lot of driving, and
he had spent literally more time on the road than he had on the water.
Because I went from Powhatan.
He had 3.5 hours of driving
to Sandy, which is probably an hour because it's all back roads.
Hour
there's
15,
no quick
easy
way to get anywhere in that country. But went from Powhatan to Sandy, and then Sandy to Twin Lakes. I was like, this is it. This is my last shot. I'm going to spend all day here. I have a bass, I have a crappie, I have a bluegill. By the people I've talked to, nobody's got a crappie yet. So I'm sitting there thinking, I have a slam. It's only 26 inches, but it's a slam. So it's like, all I have to do at this point is try to get a bass that's big. So we've seen the 2 at Twin Lakes. I get up to Twin Lakes, I paddle out across. Apparently nobody had really touched these fish all day. I'm not sure why, because there's like 4 or 5 kayakers there, but I just don't think they ever really seen the bait. So I get there, and I'm throwing on this fish for, 3 hours. I got there at 1, and I was at the bank. I mean, I'm fishing right here, and I can walk up to the bank and check it at 4. So I literally fished till 3:57. So I'm sitting there fishing, and I noticed that the big female is, swirling bluegill away. So what I did is I tied on the Smith wick. I'd thrown everything else, nothing else was working.
It's a suspending pro rogue. That's the perfect 10.
Yeah, the perfect 10. It's really a blueback herring color, but I put it on there.
You just wanted something big, looked like a bait fish, so she could T-bone it and get it out the bed.
So I tossed it out there, yanked it once. It was sitting right in the middle of the nest, and she comes up and hits it, but she hits it like this somehow. Don't know how, but she hits it like this, and I just see all 3 hooks on the outside of her mouth. And I plucked it out. I didn't want to spook her too bad. So he finally shows up, and we'll get to his part of the story here in a minute. But he shows up. I've got a slam. What was it? What was your slam?
Mine was 35.5.
I got a 35-inch slam. Okay, so I'm doing the math. Me and him had the exact same size.
We had
brim and bluegill.
I had a 19-inch bass. That we were figuring that fish on the bed. We estimated it right at 20 inches, so he could have beat me by an inch if he caught that fish.
Right. So me and him have the exact same. He's got a 9-inch crappie and a 7-inch bluegill.
9.5.
I have 2 8-inches. So we both have 16 inches. He's got 19-inch bass. So all I need to do is catch a stupid fish. So I'm sitting there throwing on it. I got a little bit of an audience at this point because guys are coming back.
7-8 people are watching.
I'm the only person standing there fishing. I've been there, standing like a statue, flipping it to this fish for probably, it's probably 2.5 hours at this point. And guy comes down from Power Team, and I didn't have any of my Power Team lure stuff with me. I got the little goodie bag, but I didn't have, the main body of my tackle with me. Just because I jumped out of the truck, I knew what I was going to throw at this fish. I was going to throw white stuff all day. I didn't bring any Power Team stuff. Well, lo and behold, that's exactly what I needed. So I told one of the guys, it'd be great if I had some Power Team stuff. So he goes back and gets me this huge, I think they call it the Devil Craw. I've never used it before, but I put it on a shaky head. I'm sitting there flipping and flipping and flipping. I have 15 minutes left. And this is where it gets good. 15 minutes left. Flip out. Look down. My line's wrapped around my handle. Unwrap it. The big one's got it in her mouth. So here's the bait, by the way. It's a super awesome looking bait in the water.
If he had that hook
Yeah,
in it, he
if I
wouldn't have
had
that
this
problem.
hook, we'd be good. But I didn't. I had a little spot remover
shaky head, because that's what he had tied on at the time. So he,
yeah, I was in a hurry because there was only 15 minutes left. So she picks it up, swims with it. I see it. I reel down, set the piss out of it. I mean,
she came out the water.
I lifted her up out of the water. She does, two, three quick head shakes, throw it out, launch the bait out of her mouth. I lose my mind, chuck my rods, did some cussing, made myself look like an idiot. And
True Josh Sullivan fashion.
Yep, losing it in the end. I got back on her and threw till 3:57 and went up and checked in, and that was it. And that fish, I honest to God believe, would have beaten his slam.
It was, if it wouldn't have beaten it, we would have tied. I mean, to the inch. It was either a 19.5 or 20-inch fish, and it was just...
Yeah, so basically...
Butthurt.
Yeah.
Is what it comes down
to. There were only 3 slams caught. His, mine, and 4 shorts. And so we all in all did pretty good. The 3 of us, just to be able to catch a crappie. So my game plan was basically hit lake to lake to lake. Not trying to force the issue. I told myself I've done it too many times. I've gotten to the lake where the fish aren't biting, and I just stay there all day, and I get skunked. So I didn't do that. My game plan was to drive around a little bit more and try to find where they're actually biting. And I know a lot of guys were on Sandy and Briery. I know a lot of guys had a bad day on Sandy and Briery just because of the wind. So whatever. But I know majority of the guys didn't have a great day just because
nobody had a good day. You just had to have a better bad day than the rest of everyone else.
Yeah, so my game plan was basically to drive around. It was a little bit more loose. Had a great time. It's probably the most laid back I've been at a tournament till the last 15 minutes of it when I figured out I actually had a shot. But anyway, that's my account of the story. I ended up coming in 2nd place in the bluegill and 3rd place in the crappie. If I'd have caught that other crappie,
you would have won the crappie division.
Yeah, Forrest Short had 2 really decent sized crappie for the day. I only had 1. The guy in front of me had 1. So if I'd have just caught another fish, it at least came in 2nd. And I think I missed 1st place on bluegill by an inch. But I was just happy to place, man. I had never placed in anything on like 6 tournaments I fished so far, so it's whatever. But anyway, that's my account of it. He'll tell his, and
so
it's a little bit more exciting.
My day on Friday was... I had my share of screw-ups, I guess, on the tournament day. I mean, I went down there. I didn't hurry down there or anything. I've fished Sandy a long time. I've fished it a lot. I know the lake pretty well. I went down there, and just this time of year is usually a little finicky in Sandy because the spawning season in Sandy is really long. I mean, it starts pretty early, but it goes, just like a lot of other places, it'll go all the way into June. I mean, there's fish on beds in June in Sandy, but I just wanted to locate some fish, and I've got one particular finger I fish a lot this time of year, a real shallow section. And more or less the deepest point in that whole section is probably 5 feet, 6 feet deep. And I mean, this is the only time of year that it's killer. And just one after the other, I went in there. I mean, I did want to hook too many fish, so I actually tried to keep it pretty low key. I threw a crawdurve, a Power Team Lewis crawdurve on their pea head, shaky head. It's my favorite shaky head I've ever used, by the way. 8-ounce pea head with a crawdurve on it. Just, it's a good way to keep it low key when you're pre-fishing. You're going to catch something on it. I think I was throwing, what color was I throwing pre-fishing? It was a Delta Destroyer was the color I was throwing pre-fishing. It's kind of red with some blue flake in it. Just a color, get something to eat it. And I caught a bunch of small fish the first day, but I did what I wanted to do. I found where the fish were. I caught maybe 9 fish. I didn't worry too much about catching them. I did not catch any bluegill, and I did not catch any crappie. Didn't even fish for either of them because I sit here, I catch a fish. Just out of curiosity, I measured it, looking how long it was, and I said, I forgot my camera. This is 1 o'clock the day before the tournament, so I had to call somebody, met me halfway to Farmville from my house with my camera. Got all that straight. So that's no big deal. I drove straight to drove to Appomattox after that, looked around, spent some of my money from the Shad Shootout tournament and everything, and that was that. Just, played around until about 5. Then we went and got all checked in. So that was my Friday. I just located fish. Saturday, woke up, raining. That was fun. Wasn't raining where you were, though.
No, it wasn't raining where I was, but it was really foggy. And
the rain was south. I mean, all of southern Virginia, from basically Farmville east, was getting rain. Not far north as Richmond, but just from Farmville, like straight across to Petersburg. I mean, all the way across Virginia was getting rain. Light rain, but it's still rain. It's a pain in the butt. So I looked at the radar, and it's just a cell sitting right on top of us. So it looked like we were going to be wet all day. I went out there, loaded up. I was the only person at the kayak launch. I went to the kayak launch instead of the boat ramp, and, I mean, I only saw one other truck there when I left. But I launched there 6:30, took my 2 pictures at launch, and headed out. I went back to that same finger because this time of year the rain still doesn't usually affect the fish much in Sandy. It wasn't hard rain either. It was just a steady drizzle. Went to the finger right before the shallow one just to fish that point. There's always a fish off of that point. And was actually throwing a bluegill flash-colored fluke first thing in the morning. This is smoking shad, but bluegill flash about the same color, just with a little bit more yellow in the belly and a little bit more kind of like a chartreuse fleck in it. But caught I think it was a 15-incher. First fish of the day. It was like third cast. So I was pretty happy. I'd laid her on the hog trough. Reached around to get my camera. I hear goosh, boosh, and she flopped right out of the hog trough into the water. I mean, all right. So some choice words were said and or screamed, and yes, I figured that's what kind of day it was going to be, which is weird because I've used a hog trough before, and when you lay fish in a trough like that, they usually don't flop because it cradles them. It kind of relaxes them. Apparently not. So anyway, dusted it off, went to the next point, third cast later, boom, I hooked another one on that fluke. It was like 12 inches. I put it on the trough, got a picture, threw it back. I probably caught, like 9 12-inch fish. I caught like 9 12-inch fish in the first hour on that fluke. And that was before I switched to the swim bait. But threw that fluke, and yeah. This time of year is known for spinnerbaits. Everybody likes to throw a spinnerbait this time of year because you have just as many fish on the beds as you do off the beds. Fish that have already pulled off, they're already done spawning. Fish that are about to spawn. So for our tournament, we don't care what they weigh. We don't care if they're on the bed, off the bed, before, after the spawn, whatever. We just want the length. So spinnerbait's a good way to target big fish. I've never been much of a spinnerbait fish, but I like throwing swim baits this time of year. Small, compact swim baits. So that's what I pulled out when I had secured 2 bass already. I only had 24 inches of bass. I knew that wasn't going to do anything. So I like to get about 5-6 feet off the bank and actually throw parallel to the bank because you've got these females and the buck bass that are cruising looking for beds, or they're going to start fanning and stuff like that. And about the third cast, I'm pulling that swim bait in. I get it right to the nose of the kayak, and one of the nastiest hits I've ever seen from like a 16-inch bass. She came up, I mean, mouth wide open and just engulfs it. The fluke just disappeared. It was there, and then it just disappeared. And she was swimming off with it. I had to actually open the bail on the bait caster because she had it sideways. Like, I had to press the button and let her swim with it. Excuse me. I had to let her swim with it because she didn't have it in her mouth yet. I saw her as she got away. She gulped it, and I laid into her. That was a 16. That was my second largest fish of the tournament. Fished that bank, very next cast, caught a 15. So both of my little 12-inchers culled out. Deleted those 2 pictures. Done. Fished for about another hour and a half, and didn't get bit. I wasn't fishing the good style of water I wanted. I want that gentle sloping bank, just where the fish are going to come up. And they just weren't on that bank. I fished this point really hard because I've caught 2 nice fish there years before, but they just weren't there. I kept fishing around. I saw a good fish on a bed. That was my big bass. It was a 19-inch fish. She wasn't on a bed. She was acting weird. She was she was looking for one, more or less. She was fanning and stuff, and when I saw her, I had been flipping at a fish that was about 12, 14 inches long. I was bored. I hadn't caught anything. I was actually pitching at a fish that looked like she might have been 15, maybe. And she wouldn't eat. And I look over to my left, and she's sitting there. And
Can I just remove it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody's not phone door.
Go answer it.
Josh's girlfriend, everybody.
Oh, God.
No big deal. We can keep going. So I was flipping at that fish, and anyway, I saw that fish sitting there. She's looking right at me. And this is, the day after, so the water was clear. I said, okay, she's on this little sand island. I started paddling all the way around. I caught one small fish on that swim bait. When I got back, I figured she had forgotten about it. Kind of tried to remember where she was. I was probably about 100 feet away from her. Bombed that swim bait, far as I could possibly throw it, because I didn't want to spook her. And, that thing hit the water, and 1, 2, she hit that thing so hard she came out the water. That thing was probably this far under the surface. She hit it dorsal fin out the water. She absolutely T-boned it. And I laid into her and couldn't tell if it was that fish or not, but I got her inside the boat. I knew it was her. Got her in the boat. I was hyped, because I figured with as windy as it was getting, I'm fishing in this back finger where the northeast wind wasn't hurting me, but I could see the main lake and I could see whitecaps. So as soon as I got a good fish in the kayak, I knew I was probably going to be okay. Got a picture of her. One last chunk of bank I wanted to fish. I fished it. There was nothing there. Two more small fish. So I left. I said, okay, I need a brim. This is when I went, and that's where I saw Josh. We talked for 2-3 minutes, and then I went around the corner. Caught a... Here's the first thing that happened. He forgot a ruler. So I gave him my KBF measuring board that I've had since the first TKA tournament down in September that I fish every year. No big deal. I had a hog trough. Turns out hog trough doesn't measure anything less than 8 inches. So, first brim I catch, 6 inches. Laid it on the hog trough. Stupid me. I threw it back in the water because I said, I can't measure this. I could have put it on the 30 and measured it to 24, and that counts. I caught 2 more doing that, and I said, oh, crap. It didn't matter. I ended up catching a 7 and 6 inch brim, measured them from the 30 to the 23 and the 24. It was fine. They didn't even ask me, so I guess they understood what was going on. So, yeah, he had the measuring board that I needed. Whatever. But then looked at my watch. It was about, it was probably, I think it was 11:45, 12 o'clock, something like that.
It was around 12.
12 or so. So I had 2.5 hours. I needed a crappie. Day before, guy that I know fairly well from TKA told me that they were catching them off of a point, or they had marked them on a point as a brush pile. They'd seen them. Turns out that point had 2 footers. I was not going to be able to jig for them there. So it took me from about halfway across Sandy to that pier 35 minutes to get to the fishing pier at the boat ramp. It was ridiculous. I pedaled all the way there. I was burying the nose under waves like every 3-4 waves. It was rough. And I got there. There's a dude on this pier. I jigged for 2.5 hours. There's a guy on this pier who was there from the second I got there till the second I left, never stopped catching crappie. Every freaking cast. I probably saw him catch 50. And I got mad. I was like, dude, what are you doing? I need one crappie. I probably broke off 15 jig heads with pink and white grubs that I always catch crappie on. Finally, he was kind of nice. He said, oh, come around this side, man. Here's what you do. And whatever. I just started slow reeling a grub on the bottom and looked at my watch. I wanted to leave that pier at 2:30 because I had about a 30-minute paddle back to the truck, then about a 40-minute drive to get to the weigh-in. 30, 40 minutes. I just didn't want to risk it. And looked at my watch. It was 2:28, and I set the hook on a 9.5 inch crappie. And yeah, you probably could have heard me screaming in Richmond. I was so hyped because this is the exact same thing that happened last year, except I didn't catch a crappie last year.
Yeah, the crappies.
It's stupid on Sandy. They're not that hard usually. If you go out there in the summer, you can't stop catching them. You catch them on crankbaits. You catch them on worms when you're fishing for bluegill. You catch them on everything. I've caught them on Texas rig worms fishing for bass. They're everywhere.
It's just like we were talking.
This time of year, they're concentrated, but you just got to find them.
We knew the guys who caught the crappie were going to be in the plan. Because everybody's going to catch bass and everybody's going to catch brim. But the guys who caught the crappie were going to be in the show. Sure enough,
So-
that's the way it was.
So anyway, I got that picture of that crappie. I actually gave the crappie to the guy on the dock because he let me come to his side of the dock and catch it. I don't think it was that. I just think I got lucky, but whatever. Gave him the crappie, and I started hightailing it back. Turns out it didn't take me 30 minutes to get back to the truck because I had a 30-mile-an-hour headwind in my back. Or 30-mile-an-hour wind in my back. So I was rolling. It took me like 15 minutes. And got to the truck, loaded up, drove, and it was... I got there probably about 3:30, just in time to see him set the hook on that fish and boosh and lose it. And I was like, oh, all right.
Yeah.
So I went, I sat there at the table, double-checked my pictures, wrote everything down, handed it in. And I had a 35.5-inch slam, the 9.5-inch crappie, 7-inch bluegill, that 19-inch bass. And then, what was the other guy's name?
Forrest Short.
He was right behind me in line. I handed mine in, and the lady said, "Oh, you've got a slam." I said, "Yeah, it's not a very big one." Just from this tournament last year, a lot of people caught a slam, and they were all bigger than what we had this year. And I said, "It's not a very big one." She said, "Oh, well, it's the only one I've seen." I was like, "What?" I mean, it's 3:30.
Yeah.
And 99% of everybody in the tournament had already checked in, so I was pretty happy. Forrest comes in, and he's right behind me. He says, he hands it in. He didn't even realize he had a slam. He wasn't paying any attention. Handed it in, just said, "Can I enter the bass division?" She said, "Oh, you got a slam." His was 32.5. Something like that, 31, 32.5. And he stood there for the next 30 minutes, and he came out and shook my hand and said congratulations, because he said no one else turned in a slam between me, him, and Josh. And he said, "Your pictures are all good." I said, "Yeah, they should be." He said, "Then you're going to win." So at that point, I was pretty happy. And then they took our memory cards. He stood there, and they must have told him or whatever that I won, because he came out and shook my hand again and said that I had gotten it. So I was pretty happy.
Yeah. Mind you, I walked up with 3 minutes to go. So whoever the guys were that were down there giving me the time, I really do appreciate it. I'm sorry I didn't get your names, but I do appreciate you guys keeping me on the clock, because I was fishing as long as I possibly could.
He was mad when he walked up there because he did not think he was placing. Like, he didn't think he was winning anything. And then turns out there was only like 3 people or 4 people in the whole tournament that caught 2 bluegill. I mean, it was crazy.
It was a bad day.
It just was not
like
good.
In tournament fashion, all these kayak tournaments, beautiful week the day before, the week before, and then the day of it's crap. So, I'd say majority of the guys that I talked to caught 2 fish or less. So, for us 3 to even get out there and wind up with a crappie was pretty fortunate. But that was our count. He ended up getting the slam. I came in second in bluegill and third in crappie, and then he won the shad shootout, the weekend before that, and the fly division. So he had a pretty good week, all in all. But even without winning, it was a good time. I mean, I went and laid back.
These tournaments are always fun to fish because it's competitive for about 3/4 of the field. Then everybody's out there to have a good time, but 3/4 of the people there are, they're all trying to win. And I mean, it's fun to fish competitively, but these aren't the guys that are gonna bite your head off competitive.
No, it's not like the bass
It's
guys.
fun competitive. It's
not like the bass guys that get out there and they don't want to tell you anything. They got lockjaw. These guys will share their information with you. You're there to have a good time.
You learn just as much. I mean, you're helping people, and I mean, we like to teach people how to do stuff. So
so they had 131 registrants. Is what I heard from Luther. They raised for Heroes on the Water. They raised, I think, upwards of $10,000, which is huge. And Heroes on the Water is basically an organization that takes veterans out and fishes with them from shore and in the kayak, fly fishing, conventional.
They're also partnered with Healing Waters, Project Healing Waters, which is the fly fishing aspect of it.
So they take veterans out. It's a great organization. Anytime you can support your veterans, the guys who even make this possible for us and the rest of you guys watching, it's a good deal. So for them to raise all that money between the kayak raffles and I guess the entry fee went towards it too. I mean, it's a good deal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure some people are kind of mad they didn't do actual money or kayak prizes this year. But I mean, I told him, like, when a tournament treats you as well as they do, the food they give you, the atmosphere you've got, the the accommodations are as good as they get. It's not that big of a deal to not win anything.
I mean we were kind of going into it, we were like, man, we wish they put kayaks up because that, it always adds a little bit more to the competitiveness of it. But hindsight, if it raised that much money for Heroes on the Water, and we still had a good time regardless, so it doesn't really matter about the kayaks and whatever prizes and all that stuff. It was just a fun time all around. You meet good people. The food they gave us
insane
was nuts.
Every time.
Steaks Friday night.
If you don't catch anything, you're not that pissed because the food's so fucking good.
It was good. But I think Saturday night they had it was a whole hog roast or pig roast.
Pig picking.
Yeah, pig picking. That's what it is. 140-pound pig ordered. They delivered one that was like 205 pounds.
That's dressed. I mean, that is a big damn pig.
There's pork for days, but I don't know. It was a good time.
Brownies, graham cracker salad. Oh god, so freaking good.
Anyway,
everything's so good.
Like I said, I approached it with a pretty sporadic game plan. That's usually how I like to go about my tournaments. He went more by the book, and
just
obviously
picking the lake apart. I mean, that just came from knowledge. I mean, I know Sandy fairly well, so I just wanted to pick it apart.
Right. So
if I didn't catch him somewhere, I was gonna catch him somewhere else.
Right. So that was basically our end of it and how we approached it. The baits we used, the primary baits we used, the big fish all hit on the fluke. My fish on that bed hit the road.
The word hit is...
Yeah.
Hit.
Yeah. Grab the rogue. I don't know how she got it without any hooks in her. But anyway, and then this is the first time I ever used this bait. I believe it's called the devil crawl. It's pretty wicked coming through the water and just how, I rigged this again weightless when I was thrown back on the bed after I missed that fish.
It's such a shallow bed. That bait's fairly heavy. It sinks pretty good.
Yeah, it was swimming fine without any weight on it. But that's what we used. As far as getting into these tournaments, because we know a lot of guys don't even register. 130 people, 131 people, even though that's one of the biggest, if not the biggest, freshwater tournament
in the country. They said as of that registration, as of 131 people, it was the largest freshwater kayak tournament in the country.
Right. So even out of that,
it could be way bigger too.
Yeah, there's still thousands of you guys out there that aren't registered. So here's how you get involved with, Yak Attack and the TKA tournament, and the Shad Shootout. You go to tkaa.org. You make yourself a username, a little profile. Get on there. It's a great community, very supporting. All the guys in there help you out. They let you know when you're going out fishing. But they have these tournaments. They have a whole page for them, individual tournaments.
They
TKA.
list every one of the TKA sponsored events, all the Yak Attack sponsored events. They have one of the largest saltwater tournaments in the country. That's in September.
Right.
But they have the tournaments page to look at all the other notable tournaments that are out there. So I mean, it's the best source of kayak fishing information you get.
Right, and that's the thing. All these tournaments raise money for veterans or like Tom's was multiple sclerosis research and awareness. I mean, it's a good deal. It's not a money grab. It's all for a good cause, no matter where you place in the whole deal of it all.
They all know how to run tournaments. You're going to get treated well either way. I mean, it's a fun time.
Right, so go to tkaa.org, Tidewater Kayak Anglers Association. They'll get you involved in the tournaments and stuff. And, that's pretty much, all we had for the whole time. That's our account of what happened and
that's
how
we can review.
Yeah, that's how
it was a pretty hectic week.
He managed 2 first places and I managed to squeak by in place at all, which I think I'm more happy about that than he is his wins. I've never placed, so it was a good deal. But it was a good time. We hope you guys enjoy it. I'm going to be putting out some blog posts on these things, and I got one coming out for the shad. We wrapped up our shad. We're moving into some of the bigger freshwater game fish species now. We're going to be hitting some spawning flatheads soon,
hoping to do that Thursday.
Pre-spawn flatheads. So hopefully we'll get into something big. I think we're running on almost 50 minutes now. So
this is a lot longer.
Yeah, it's like
double. A lot longer than we'll normally do, but we're not usually talking about weekend reviews. So
yeah, we broke down the 2 obviously. So we hope you guys enjoy it. We appreciate your continued support. and comment or give us suggestions of what we can do to make this more enjoyable for you guys.
If you like it, share us on Facebook, tell your friends, all that stuff.
Yep.
It helps us out.
On Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Peelin Drag, we're all over the place. Fishhard or stayhome.com. You can email us from there and talk to us about different techniques. I mean, if you want to go fishing
We're
with us, let us know.
accessible.
Yeah.
You can talk to us.
Yeah, we're pretty wide open, guys. We don't really put a cap on it ever. We're pretty fun guys. We like to have fun. We like to share the fun. So I'm glad you guys stayed tuned to this point. I know we're at 50 minutes.
So if you're still with us at 50 minutes and 14 seconds.
Yeah, you did good. We're proud of you. But thanks for watching, guys. Like I said, thanks for all your support.
We'll see you out there.
All right.